The observation deck of the galactic training compound hummed with the usual mixture of anticipation and barely concealed contempt. Instructor Vrelthos, a towering Korthian with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian, crossed his forearms as he surveyed the latest group of candidates, presenting their bonded companions for evaluation. Next, his voice boomed across the sterile white platform. A human stepped forward. Naturally, the woman moved with that peculiar grace humans possessed, a deceptive fluidity that masked their world's ridiculous gravity. Her name tag read Dakota Mills, and she carried a medium-sized container with air holes punched through the top. The assembled instructors, a collection of species from across 6 sectors, leaned forward with interest. Humans always brought the most entertaining failures. "Identify your companion," Vrelthos demanded, his translator crystal pulsing at his throat. "Honey badger," Dakota replied, her voice steady despite the dozen predatory gazes fixed upon her. "Male. Designation, Brutus." A ripple of confusion spread through the instructor panel. To Vrelthos's left, senior evaluator Thex Mora, a gelatinous Quellian, bubbled uncertainly. "Clarification required. This creature, it is apex predator from Earth?" "Not exactly," Dakota admitted, setting down the container. "But he's, well, you'll see." Laughter erupted from the candidates waiting their turn. A Draxian warrior named Krevnak slapped his armored thigh with a resounding clang. "The human brings a mid-tier scavenger. Oh, this will be priceless. My Thornbeast will devour it as an appetizer." More jeering followed. The Thornbeast in question, a massive creature resembling a cross between a rhinoceros and a pile of animated knives, snorted steam from its nostrils. Vrelthos raised one hand for silence. "The evaluation will proceed according to standard protocol. Release your, badger." Dakota knelt beside the container, her fingers working the latches. "Just so we're clear," she said, looking up at the panel with an expression that might have been concern or might have been something else entirely. "You signed the waiver, right? The one about medical expenses and structural damage?" Thex Mora's gelatinous form quivered with amusement. "Human, we have trained companions from death worlds across the galaxy. Your Earth, while admittedly violent, is Category 7 at best. We have handled Category 9 specimens. Your liability concerns are, how do you say, adorable?" "Right." Dakota's mouth twitched. "Adorable. Got it." The latches clicked open. For a moment, nothing happened. The assembled crowd leaned forward, straining to see what manner of creature would emerge. Then, with absolutely no fanfare or dramatic build-up, a stocky black and white animal waddled out onto the platform. Silence. Then, explosive laughter. "That," Krevnak wheezed between guffaws. "That tubby little dirt digger is your bonded companion. I have seen Earth documentaries. Those creatures eat insects and roots. My grandmother's pet was more fearsome, and she kept decorative moss." The honey badger, Brutus, sat on his haunches and surveyed the room with small, dark eyes that held absolutely zero concern for anything or anyone present. His claws clicked against the floor as he scratched behind one ear. Instructor Vrelthos attempted to maintain professional composure, though his inner set of arms trembled with suppressed mirth. "Very well. We shall begin with the standard dominance assessment. Krevnak, since you seem eager, bring forth your Thornbeast." The Draxian warrior strutted forward, radiating confidence. His Thornbeast followed, a literal mountain of muscle, horn, and bad attitude. It stood nearly 3 meters tall at the shoulder. Brutus barely reached knee height. "The protocol is simple," Vrelthos announced. "The creatures will face each other. Dominance displays will be evaluated based on aggression, tactical awareness, and willingness to submit when outmatched. No actual combat will occur unless." Brutus charged. There was no warning growl, no aggressive posturing, no puffing up or threat display. One moment the honey badger was sitting peacefully. The next he was a black and white missile of concentrated violence moving at speeds that shouldn't have been possible for something so compact. The Thornbeast, trained since birth for combat, accustomed to facing down predators twice its size, had exactly zero preparation for what hit it. Brutus went for the face. No. That's not quite accurate. Brutus went through the face, climbing the Thornbeast's armored hide with claws that punched through scales the instructors had certified as blade-resistant. The Thornbeast's roar of surprise turned into a shriek of genuine pain as Brutus latched onto its snout and began methodically destroying everything within reach. "Call it off!" Krevnak shouted, his previous confidence evaporating. "The evaluation is, the dominance is clearly, just get that thing off." Dakota shrugged. "He doesn't really do commands mid-fight. Maybe try having your Thornbeast submit?" The Thornbeast was already trying. The massive creature bucked, thrashed, and finally, in an act of pure desperation, threw itself sideways into the reinforced wall of the observation deck. The impact registered on seismic sensors 3 levels down. Brutus held on. "Fascinating." Vexmora bubbled, their scientific curiosity overriding common sense. The creature's jaw strength must be exponentially greater than body mass would suggest. And note the pain tolerance. The Thornbeast's horn just punctured its shoulder, and the badger hasn't even flinched. Vrelthos stabbed at the emergency containment controls. Force barriers shimmered into existence, designed to separate combatants. Brutus ignored them entirely, his thick hide apparently rendering him completely indifferent to the electromagnetic fields that should have induced compliance. "Why?" Krevnak's voice had gone very small. "Why is it eating the horn? It's chewing through solid bone." Dakota checked her fingernails with studied casualness. "Yeah, honey badgers have been recorded eating entire porcupines, quills and all. Your friend's horn is, honestly, probably less troublesome than the spicy cobra he had last week." The fight ended when the Thornbeast, a creature bred for gladiatorial combat on one of the harshest worlds in the sector, went completely limp in a defensive submission posture, usually only seen in infant animals. Brutus, satisfied with this outcome, released his grip and waddled back toward Dakota, trailing blood from a dozen wounds that he seemed to regard as minor inconveniences at best. The observation deck was absolutely silent. "Medical team to Platform 7, Vrelthos said quietly into his communicator. "Bring the heavy sedation equipment. And, reinforce stretchers." As the Thornbeast was carted away, whimpering, Krevnak stared at Dakota with something approaching religious horror. "What is that thing?" "I told you. Honey badger. Mellivora capensis, if you want the scientific name. They're known for being pretty relaxed about personal safety." Instructor Zilix, a mantis-like scratch who hadn't spoken before, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Relaxed is an interesting word choice for an animal that just destroyed a creature 8 times its mass. "What else can you tell us about this species?" Dakota smiled. It wasn't a particularly comforting expression. "Well, they've got skin so tough and loose that if a predator grabs them, they can literally turn around inside their own hide and attack. Their anal glands produce a suffocating stink that can clear out entire beehives, which they then raid for honey while getting stung hundreds of times. Oh, and they're completely immune to most venoms, including cobras, which they hunt for fun." "For fun," Thexmore repeated faintly. "Yeah, they don't have natural predators. Not because they're impossible to kill, but because nothing wants to deal with the absolute nightmare of actually trying. One time, a leopard caught a honey badger, got bitten really badly, let it go, and then the badger took a nap to recover, and came back 2 hours later to finish the fight. They literally do not quit." Vrelthos felt a headache forming behind his eye ridges. In 70 cycles of evaluating bonded companions, he had never encountered anything quite like this. Surely there must be some limitation, some weakness. "Self-preservation instinct?" Dakota offered. "They basically don't have one. There's documented cases of them attacking buffalo, African lions, and full-grown rhinos. Not to eat, just because those animals annoyed them." Brutus, meanwhile, had discovered an equipment storage locker and was systematically destroying it to get at something inside. The reinforced durasteel door, rated to withstand ship-to-ship weapons fire, was coming off its hinges. "Stop him!" Vrelthas commanded. Dakota walked over and peered into the locker. "What's in there?" "Nutritional supplements for the larger specimens." "Why does that matter?" "Does it smell like food?" What? Possibly. The supplements contain synthesized proteins and, yeah, he's going to get in there. You might want to just open it. Save the door. Pride prevented Vrelthos from immediately complying, a decision he regretted when Brutus achieved entry 15 seconds later by simply ripping through metal that should have been impervious. The honey badger emerged with a nutrition bar designed for creatures 50 times his size and began eating it, wrapper and all. "This is insane," muttered Instructor Pixel, a crystalline entity from the third moon of Qualix. His digestive system cannot possibly process industrial packaging materials. Dakota shrugged again. Honey badgers eat everything. Bones, turtle shells, tree bark, toxic plants that would kill most animals. Their gut is basically a biological waste incinerator. "Evaluation pause," Vrelthos announced, his voice slightly higher than usual. "We need to recalibrate our assessment protocols. This creature does not fit standard behavioral matrices." "Coward." The voice came from the candidate section. Alpha Instructor Garnix stepped forward, his massive frame dwarfing even Vrelthos. Garnix was a legend, a Corthian prime who had personally bonded with the most dangerous creature ever brought to the training compound. A void worm from the dead spaces between stars, a thing of nightmare and quantum uncertainty made flesh. The human's pet got lucky against an herbivore with delusions of combat prowess. Garnix continued, his voice dripping with contempt. "My worm has ended species. It has consumed matter in states you cannot comprehend. This furry insect is nothing." He gestured, and reality twisted. The void worm didn't enter the room so much as it began existing there. A serpentine impossibility that hurt to look at directly. It had too many dimensions, occupying space in ways that violated comfortable geometries. Its scales were the color of collapsed suns, and its eyes held the cold mathematics of entropy itself. Brutus looked up from his stolen meal, nutrition bar crumbs dusting his snout. The worm radiated psychic pressure, a wave of existential dread that sent half the candidates fleeing the observation deck. It was a predator that existed before light and would continue after heat death, and it wanted everyone present to understand their cosmic insignificance. Brutus sneezed, then he charged. "No." Garnix's confident expression shattered. "No, that's not. Creatures are supposed to cower. The worm's presence alone has broken the minds of—" Wait. The honey badger couldn't truly comprehend the higher dimensions the worm occupied, so he simply ignored them, operating on a level of reality where things were solid and biteable. This, as it turned out, was the worm's only weakness. Nothing had ever been stupid enough to attack it in purely physical terms, while it was manifesting its cosmic horror aspect. Brutus latched onto what might have been the worm's throat, or possibly its concept of a throat, and held on as the creature thrashed through multiple states of matter simultaneously. "It's chewing through quantum-lock scales," Pyexal shrieked. "That's not physically possible. Those scales exist partially outside normal space-time." Dakota sighed. "Honey badgers don't really care about what's possible. There was this one that broke into a secure research facility 6 times. They kept improving security, electrified fences, motion sensors, the works. Didn't matter. It wanted the food inside, so it just kept coming. The worm attempted to phase into non-reality, a defensive mechanism that had saved it from countless predators across the eons. Brutus, lacking any comprehension of dimensional theory, accidentally went with it, still firmly attached and now causing damage in spaces where damage shouldn't exist. Garnix was making small, whimpering sounds. The fight concluded when the Void Wyrm, an entity older than most civilizations, made a choice it had never made in its incomprehensibly long existence. It submitted. The cosmic horror collapsed back into 3 normal dimensions, curled into a ball, and projected feelings of surrender and profound respect. Brutus let go, waddled over to the worm's head, and urinated on it. That's a marking behavior," Thexmora observed weakly. "The badger is claiming dominance over a being that exists partially outside causality." Dakota nodded. "Yeah, territorial marking. He's saying the worm belongs to him now. It's actually kind of sweet, in a deeply disturbing way." Garnix collapsed to his knees, his legendary composure completely destroyed. The greatest alpha, instructor in compound history, stared at his bonded companion, now cowering before a creature that weighed perhaps 12 kilograms, and something fundamental broke in his understanding of the universe. Vrelthas's headache had evolved into a full migraine. We need to update every protocol, every assessment matrix. Everything we thought we knew about bonding compatibility is wrong, Dakota suggested helpfully. Yeah, that's kind of humanity's whole thing. We domesticated wolves by befriending them. We taught birds to hunt with us, and some absolute madman looked at honey badgers and thought, you know what? I bet we could work together. Took about 40 years and 16 evacuated research stations, but we figured it out. Brutus had returned to his nutrition bar, completely unconcerned with the existential crisis he'd triggered in every instructor present. The evaluation, Vrelthas said eventually, his voice hollow, is suspended pending comprehensive review. Dakota Mills, your companion he's accepted into the program. Dakota's smile was sunshine and innocence wrapped around titanium core confidence. Quarantined pending psychological assessment of the entire training staff, Vrelthas corrected. We need to determine if we're qualified to even attempt training something that just dominated a Void Wyrm. Fair enough. Dakota produced a leash from her pack. Brutus, surprisingly, allowed himself to be attached to it without complaint. We'll be at Habitat Suite 7 if you need us. Oh, and you might want to feed Brutus. He gets cranky when he's hungry. Cranky, Krevnak repeated, staring at the destroyed Thornbeast being loaded onto medical transport. Right, cranky. As Human and Honey Badger departed, Instructor Pixel crystallized a thought that everyone was considering. We've trained companions from every deadly world in this sector, creatures that breathe plasma, that hunt in supercritical fluids, that experience time non-linearly. But none of them, not one, had that animal's complete disregard for reality's limitations. Vrelthas watched through the observation window as Dakota and Brutus walked down the corridor, the honey badger waddling along peacefully until he spotted a maintenance bot and immediately attacked it for no discernible reason. The bot's distress signals echoed through the compound as it frantically retreated. Contact Central Command, Vrelthas ordered tiredly. Inform them that we may need to completely restructure our understanding of Earth's threat classification. And anyone, please tell me there's a manual for dealing with species that weaponize stubbornness. In the distance, something expensive crashed and broke, followed by Brutus's distinctive grunting growl, and Dakota's calm voice saying, please don't eat the gravity regulators. We've been over this. The galactic training compound facility that had successfully bonded and trained companions from 700 worlds had just encountered its greatest challenge, and evaluation day was only half over. 3 days had passed since the incident that staff were now calling the humbling, though never within earshot of Garnix, who had locked himself in his quarters and refused all communication. The compound's medical wing remained overcrowded with candidates whose companions had suffered various degrees of psychological trauma after witnessing a 12-kilogram Earth mammal dismantle a cosmic entity. Dakota sat in the coordinator's office. Brutus curled peacefully in her lap like the universe's most dangerous house cat. Across the desk, Chief Administrator Kelnara, a dignified Viridian whose iridescent feathers currently displayed stress patterns in alarming crimson shades, reviewed incident reports on multiple data screens. 17 destroyed security drones, Kelnara recited, her vocal synthesizer crackling with barely restrained frustration. 9 breached the containment protocols. 4 rewrites of our physics databases because your companion violated laws we thought were universal constants. And somehow, impossibly, he got into the quantum-sealed vault on level 12 and ate the ceremonial bonding crystals worth more than some planetary economies. In Brutus's defense, Dakota offered, they probably shouldn't have made them smell like honey. That's basically entrapment. They were crystallized starlight. They had no scent. Tell that to him. Dakota gestured at Brutus, who yawned, revealing teeth that had chewed through materials engineered to survive stellar core temperatures. Honey badgers have an incredibly sensitive sense of smell. If those crystals had even trace amounts of organic compounds, he'd detect them. Kelnara's feathers cycled through several additional stress colors before settling on a resigned purple. The council has reviewed your evaluation. Against all rational judgment, they've decided to proceed with your enrollment in the advanced bonding program. Dakota straightened slightly. Really? I figured after the, everything, they'd send us home. Oh, several council members voted for exactly that. Unfortunately, you've created an unprecedented situation. Kelnara pulled up a holographic display showing galactic news feeds. Every major network was running the same story. Earth creature defeats legendary Void Wyrm. The publicity has generated immense interest in human bonding techniques. Kelnara continued. 17 member species have formally requested information exchanges. The Draxian Empire, Krevnak's people, offered to trade 3 colony worlds for detailed behavioral studies on honey badgers. 3 colony worlds. Dakota, for a species you classify as least concern on your conservation index. Dakota couldn't suppress her grin. That's actually hilarious. It's a diplomatic nightmare. Do you understand what happens when a Tier 7 civilization's fauna casually dominates a Tier 3 threat? It destabilizes our entire classification system. Insurance premiums for bonding programs have tripled across 6 sectors because underwriters are terrified of what other horrors Earth might be hiding. Brutus chose that moment to wake fully, stretch, and immediately begin investigating Kelnara's desk. His claws scraped across the smart surface, leaving permanent gouges in technology that was supposed to be indestructible. Please control your companion, Kelnara said weakly. Brutus, come on. We talked about this. No destroying furniture during important meetings. Dakota offered a treat from her pocket, successfully redirecting his attention. Sorry, he's teething. Teething? He's an adult specimen. Yeah, but honey badgers never really stop testing their bite strength. It's kind of their whole personality. A chime interrupted them. Instructor Vrel appeared in the doorway, his scales showing unusual patterns of agitation. Administrator, we have a situation in the Alpha training arena. You need to see this immediately. The arena occupied the compound's central dome, a massive space reinforced with enough shielding to contain small nuclear events. When they arrived, Dakota found herself staring at an assembly that included every senior instructor, the full council, and nearly 200 candidates with their companions. At the arena's center stood Garnix. The legendary Alpha instructor looked haggard, his scales dulled and his posture suggesting someone who hadn't slept since the evaluation. His Void Wyrm coiled beside him, significantly smaller than before and emanating none of its previous cosmic menace. If anything, it seemed nervous. Human Dakota Mills. Garnix's voice boomed across the arena, though it lacked its former arrogance. I formally challenge you to alpha determination. Single combat between bonded companions, observed combat protocols, yield conditions accepted by both parties. Murmurs rippled through the assembled crowd. Alpha determination was rarely invoked, a serious affair that could result in permanent injury or death. It was meant to establish absolute hierarchy when dominance remained unclear. Dakota glanced at Brutus, who had noticed an interesting-looking bolt in the arena wall and was attempting to unscrew it with his teeth. You sure about this? Brutus doesn't really do formal combat. He just does violence. There's a difference. I am aware. Garnix's expression held something unexpected, not anger, but desperate determination. My worm has served me for 60 cycles. It has faced horrors that would shatter your species' sanity. 3 days ago, it submitted to a creature that shouldn't even register on our threat assessments. This cannot stand. We must know, definitively, if that was luck, or something else. Vrelthos stepped forward. Administrator Kelnara, this is highly irregular. The human's companion hasn't completed basic certification. Allowing this challenge violates 17 safety protocols. Overruled, Kelnara said quietly, her feathers now showing the golden shades of resigned acceptance. Garnix invokes ancient right. We cannot refuse without dishonoring 6,000 years of tradition. However, she turned to Dakota. You may decline without penalty. No one would fault you for refusing combat against a Void Wyrm. Dakota looked at Brutus, who had successfully removed the bolt, and was now eating it. What do you think, buddy? Want to have another go at the scary space snake? Brutus's response was to waddle toward the arena center, his gait unhurried and completely unconcerned. The Void Wyrm, despite being exponentially larger and more powerful, visibly tensed. I guess that's a yes, Dakota said. What are the rules? Garnix outlined them quickly. Combat continues until one companion yields, loses consciousness, or their bonded partner concedes defeat. Medical teams stand ready. Lethal force is, regrettably, permitted though discouraged. If your companion kills my worm, so be it. We face this with honor. The arena floor cleared. Candidates and instructors retreated behind reinforced barriers. Sensor equipment activated, recording everything for future analysis and, Dakota suspected, as evidence for the inevitable legal proceedings. Begin, Kelnara announced. The Void Wyrm didn't hesitate this time. It had learned from their previous encounter, abandoning its psychological warfare tactics in favor of pure physical assault. Reality warped as it struck, moving through dimensions to appear behind Brutus, jaws wide enough to swallow the honey badger whole. Brutus wasn't there. The small mammal had already moved, not with precognitive ability or supernatural speed, but with the simple unpredictability of an animal that had never learned fear. He zigged when logic suggested zagging, jumped when physics recommended ducking, and generally operated on principles that made tactical analysis impossible. He's not following standard evasion patterns, Instructor Pixel observed, his crystalline form refracting data projections in real time. There's no pattern at all. It's pure chaos. Not chaos, Dakota corrected. Honey badgers are incredibly intelligent, but they don't think like predators or prey. They think like, imagine if determination was a survival strategy. Brutus demonstrated this by doing something completely insane. Instead of evading the worm's next strike, he charged directly into its mouth. Garnix made a strangled sound. No. That's suicide. Why would he? The Void Wyrm's triumphant hiss turned into a shriek of agony. Brutus, now inside the creature's gullet, had discovered that internal organs were significantly less protected than quantum-lock scales. The worm thrashed, trying desperately to regurgitate its attacker, but honey badger claws had found purchase in soft tissues. He's eating his way out, Thex Mora burbled in, horrified fascination. The badger is consuming the worm from inside while still alive. Dakota winced. Yeah, that's actually a documented honey badger hunting technique. They've been recorded doing it to pythons. Get swallowed, then just start eating. It's horrifically effective. The worm attempted to phase into non-reality again, but Brutus had apparently figured out that trick. When the cosmic entity began shifting dimensions, the honey badger simply held on to something vital and came along for the ride, continuing his internal assault across multiple planes of existence. This is wrong, Garnix whispered, watching his legendary companion's desperate struggle. The worm has devoured stars, it has unmade realities. How is this possible? Because Brutus doesn't care about any of that, Dakota explained, her voice gentle despite the violence unfolding. He doesn't understand cosmic significance or reality warping. He just knows something tried to eat him, and his response to that is always the same. Maximum aggression, zero quit. The fight concluded faster than their first encounter. The Void Wyrm, unable to eject or escape its attacker, and unwilling to destroy itself to win, made the only logical choice. It collapsed, phasing back to normal reality, and projected absolute surrender through every psychic channel available. Brutus emerged from the worm's mouth, covered in ichor that existed in colors without names, and immediately began grooming himself as though nothing unusual had occurred. Silence dominated the arena for a long moment. Then Garnix did something that sent shockwaves through the compound's social hierarchy. He knelt before Dakota, bowing his head in a gesture of profound respect. that his people reserved for gods and deceased heroes. I understand now, he said quietly. My worm is ancient, powerful beyond measure, but it knows fear. It comprehends mortality. Your companion, this impossible creature, he simply doesn't. Not arrogance. Not courage. Just complete absence of the instinct that keeps most beings alive. Dakota helped him stand. Honey badgers aren't fearless. They're just stubborn. Like, aggressively, violently stubborn. Evolution gave them thick skin and powerful jaws, but mostly, it gave them the absolute refusal to give up on anything ever. Garnix looked at Brutus, who had discovered the medical station and was attempting to break into the painkiller storage. What would happen if your species weaponized these creatures, trained them for warfare? We tried. Sort of. Didn't work. You can't really train a honey badger because they don't care about rewards or punishments enough to modify behavior. They'll do what you want if they feel like it, and ignore you completely if they don't. They're partners, not soldiers. Kelnara approached, her feathers now displaying thoughtful silver patterns. The challenge is concluded. Garnix, do you accept your standing? I do. He straightened, some of his old pride returning. I am humbled but not dishonored. My worm faced a type of opponent we never imagined existed. We learned, we adapted, we still lost, but now we understand why. Good. Then we proceed with an unusual proposition. Kelnara activated a holographic display showing the compound's organizational structure. Dakota Mills, your evaluation scores are, technically, off our measurement scales. Brutus has demonstrated capabilities that our best theoretical models cannot explain. Therefore, the Council has decided to create a new program division. You will head the Earth Bonding Studies Department. Dakota blinked. I'm sorry. What? I'm 24. I've had Brutus for 6 months. I'm barely qualified to feed him without losing fingers. Exactly. You have practical experience with a species we cannot control, predict, or even safely study. We need that expertise. 17 species want to establish bonding programs with Earth fauna. They need guidance on which creatures are safe, which are suicidal, and which are, well, honey badgers. You want me to teach aliens about Earth animals. More specifically, we want you to prevent them from accidentally importing something that will destroy their civilizations. After witnessing what a mid-tier Earth omnivore did to our best specimens, the Council is terrified of what your actual apex predators might achieve. Dakota considered this. You know we have bigger, scarier things than honey badgers, right? Like way scarier. Every instructor present shuddered simultaneously. Which is precisely why we need you. Vrelthos interjected. Start small. Educate us. Help us understand which Earth creatures are safe for bonding programs and which are, what did you call them? Absolute nightmares? I mean, okay, but you're not going to like this. Honey badgers aren't even in Earth's top 20 scariest animals. They're just the most stubborn. Kelnara's feathers flashed through alarm colors. What could possibly be more dangerous than concentrated stubbornness wrapped in indestructible skin? Well, there's this thing called a saltwater crocodile that's basically a living dinosaur with a bite force that can crush car engines. And orcas, which are genius-level intelligent pack hunters that torture prey for fun and teaching purposes. Oh, and humans ourselves, we're persistent pack hunters with endurance capabilities that let us literally chase prey until they die of exhaustion. The assembled council exchanged worried looks. Perhaps, Kelnara said carefully, we should start with detailed threat assessments before approving any additional Earth imports. Probably smart. Dakota scooped up Brutus, who had managed to open the painkiller cabinet, and was disappointed to find the contents weren't food. Although, fair warning, humans have this weird habit of befriending the most dangerous things we can find. We've got people who keep venomous snakes as pets, swim with sharks for recreation, and one guy who lived with grizzly bears until the predictable happened. Your species is insane, Krevnak muttered from the observation area. Yeah, probably. But we're also really good at bonding with animals that everyone else thinks are impossible partners. Turns out mutual stubbornness creates strong relationships. Garnix approached Dakota, his posture respectful. I would request permission to study under your instruction. My worm and we must understand this new paradigm. Pride kept me from seeing truth before. I won't make that mistake again. Sure, but I'm going to need help setting up proper habitats for Earth species. Brutus needs specific environmental enrichment, or he gets destructive. Well, more destructive. Whatever you require, Kelnara assured her. Your department has unlimited funding and emergency authorization to modify compound infrastructure as needed. As if summoned by the mention of destruction, alarms blared throughout the facility. A frantic technician appeared on the communication screen. Administrator, something's breached the temporal stabilization lab. It's eating the chronon generators. Everyone turned to stare at Brutus, who was still securely in Dakota's arms. That's not him, Dakota said quickly. He's been with me the whole time. Then what? Kelnara's question died as understanding dawned. The shipment. The Earth fauna shipment that arrived this morning for biodiversity research. What species did they send? Dakota pulled out her datapad, accessing the manifest. Her expression shifted from confusion to dawning horror. Oh no. Oh, that's bad. They sent a care package from the Australian division. Australian division? Vrelthas asked. Australia it's basically Earth's laboratory for creating the most unlikely dangerous animals possible. Everything there is venomous, aggressive, or both. Why would they send? She scrolled further, and her face went pale. They sent a cassowary. Is that worse than a honey badger? Cassowaries are descendants of dinosaurs that decided extinction was optional. They have claws that can disembowel you. They're extremely territorial. And they can run 45 kilometers per hour through dense forest. Also, they're tall. Like 2 meters tall. And they hate everything. The alarms intensified. Through the security feeds, they watched as a massive bird, brilliant blue and utterly furious, demolished advanced technology with calculated kicks that generated enough force to dent reinforced bulkheads. Brutus perked up in Dakota's arms, making interested grunting sounds. No, Dakota told him firmly. We are not fighting the cassowary. That's a terrible idea even for you. Brutus ignored her, squirming free and waddling toward the exit with obvious intent. This is my life now. Dakota sighed, jogging after her companion. Teaching aliens about Earth while preventing my honey badger from fighting every dangerous animal that crosses his path. Behind her, Garnix called out. Do you require assistance? Bring protective gear, and maybe some fruit. Cassowaries like fruit, probably, I think. As the compound's newest department head sprinted toward her second interdimensional incident in less than a week, followed by instructors from a dozen species and one determined honey badger, Kelnara updated her personal log. Day 743. She recorded wearily. Have established Earth Bonding Studies Program. Current status. Controlled chaos. Prediction. Tomorrow will be worse. Note to self. Research humans saying hold my beer, and understand why it's always followed by terrible decisions. Also, request budget increase. Current funding insufficient for structural repairs Earth fauna will inevitably require. In the distance, something expensive exploded, followed by the distinctive war cry of an extremely angry cassowary, and Brutus's answering growl of enthusiasm. The galactic training compound had survived 10,000 years of bonding the galaxy's most dangerous creatures to worthy companions. Earth's animals were teaching them humility, one destroyed protocol at a time. And somewhere in the chaos, Dakota Mills was pretty sure she heard Brutus and the cassowary stop fighting and start collaborating on destroying a wall. Because of course they did. That's what Earth animals do.